Hello and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. On behalf of OTC Markets, we are very pleased you have joined us for the second day of our Precious Metals and Critical Minerals Conference. The next presentation of the day is from Founders Metals. Please note you may submit questions for the presenter in the box to the left of the slides. You can also view a company's availability for a one-on-one meeting by clicking Book a Meeting. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome Colin Padgett, President, Chief Executive Officer, and Director of Founders Metals, which trades on the OTCQX Best Market under the symbol FDMIF and on the TSXV under the symbol FDR. Welcome back, Colin.
Thanks very much. Yeah, glad to be back. We'll dive into it here. I'm going to go through this so that I can kind of introduce everyone who's maybe not familiar with the story. So the Antino Gold Project and Founders, we really got started in November of 2022. It was my first trip to Suriname and to the project, doing due diligence. We then acquired the property and closed the transaction on that in March of 2023. We do things a little differently than the usual junior exploration company. We bought our own diamond drill rigs right out of the gate. Initially bought 2 rigs, started with one in June of 2023 and drilled just over 10,000 meters that year. That expanded to 4 rigs by the end of 2024. We drilled 42,000 meters, and last year we drilled north of 60,000 meters with the same 4 rigs, but now own 6 and have capacity to maybe ramp that up here this year potentially. So dive in and kind of go through, of course, we're making some forward-looking statements as we go. So just some background on why Suriname, and this question comes up quite a bit, and really I've always come back to this map, and the Atlantic Ocean is a little narrower than it should be here for a reason, and that's really to demonstrate that there's a connectivity in the geology across the Atlantic between West Africa and the very well-known and well understood gold geology of the Birimian Shield and the Guyana Shield here. Where we're located, and we sit right in the center of it. And it's a pretty prolific jurisdiction, but there's over almost 300 million ounces of gold identified in the West African piece, and in the Guyana Shield we're sitting about 110 million ounces. And what it represents is a lot of opportunity for some new discoveries, and we've seen a lot of interest from major mining companies, investors, kind of across the board in new discoveries and new explorers in this jurisdiction as a whole. There's been a lot of pretty exciting developments and M&A action in the area, and we've had a lot of success with the discovery piece as well, and we're very happy to be in the jurisdiction that we're in and to have kind of gotten there in the timing that we did. But zooming into Suriname itself, Suriname's a pretty small place, about 400 by 400 kilometers, 650,000 people, democratically elected government with a really strong focus on gold. Suriname's also pretty well known for some recent offshore oil and gas discoveries, with companies like Total and Apache making some large scale investments in the development of those offshore resources. 2 big operating mines in Suriname, and Marion mine is 10 million plus ounce of total production and current ounces on the books, is a Newmont operation that's been running since 2016. The Rosebel mine is really an institution, I'd say, at this point in country. It originally worked with Cambior and Golden Star, and then IAMGOLD had it for many years, and then Zijin has acquired it most recently and is running a successful operation there now. And that's almost 25 years of continuous production at Rosebel. Antino's down here in the southeast of the country. We sit right on the French-Guyana border, and we've recently consolidated over 100,000 hectares in terms of land package covering this very prospective area of the Guyana Shield and very prospective greenstone belt geology in this part of Suriname. And I'll get into the details on that here in the next couple of slides. I mentioned we do our own drilling, so very capital efficient exploration. That's one thing we pride ourselves on, is being able to quote that kind of $250 Canadian all in per drill meter. So we keep exploration costs very low, and we're able to do a lot. it is a very pro-mining jurisdiction. Gold is a huge focus of the company or of the country, and there's been a lot of support from the government for Antino as well. Overall, very target-rich environment. We've attracted, I think, from both the drill results we have had to date and the scale that the new Antino concession represents, some strategic investments from initially B2 Gold and most recently in November, Gold Fields made a $50 million single check investment into to founders, acquiring just over 10% of the company in that transaction. So jumping to that and kind of, who makes up the current shareholders and the current corporate snapshot for founders. So Gold Fields at 10.5%, B2 Gold sits a little over 5%. Management and insiders was 7.5% of the company currently, with retail taking up about a quarter of the pie. Half of the ownership right now sits with institutional investors and large holdings with BlackRock, Dynamic Funds or 1832 out of Toronto, and then Franklin Goring. There's a few very well-respected institutional investors that are part of the story, and we're very happy to have as shareholders. Working capital right now, we've got just over $50 million Canadian in the bank, 150 million shares outstanding, no warrants on the books, and so very clean structure overall. Analyst coverage has really picked up over the course of the last year, and I'll get into kind of what they're saying about the property and about some of the main targets here as we go. But it's been really great seeing that level of interest from the bank side of things as well. Jumping into that, kind of what we have. So this is kind of zooming into that southeast part of Suriname, and the Antino concession has recently expanded quite a lot. So originally we were this concession here in the center of the land package, which is 20,000 hectares, exportation license. And this is where we've done, I'd say, up until it's only just recently that we've acquired new ground. So almost all of our work to date has been on this 20,000 hectare piece. And about 70% of that work, the drilling and kind of surface exploration work, has been focused around this area here. So I'll zoom in to give you some more detail on that stuff, but just kind of keeping that in mind, that the success that we've had to date and the drilling results, like the 38 meters of 10 at Upper Antino, 90 meters of 1 at Lower Antino, 20 meters of 7 at Boise. These sorts of numbers have come from this concession, and so it's all really pointed to us that there's a lot of prospectivity for this area as a whole, and it's why we really pushed to acquire and expand our land holdings in the area, because we think that there's an opportunity for, realistically, I think, generational mining here on the total Antino concession, and building something out to a mining scenario that potentially lasts many decades, as has been the case with many of the big orogenic gold deposits in the jurisdiction. So the progression was in November. We acquired this ground here, really large historic database that was quite exciting to us. A couple of really high priority targets that we're going to be getting to with a drill in March. So this 5-kilometer gold anomaly in historic auger work, that's actually right now the largest single auger anomaly on the entire property. And then some work from our own geologists, where we found now 5 separate high-grade shears across a strike of about 3.5 kilometers. And so these are things that, with grab samples from some early prospecting work, up to 70 grams per ton. So very excited to get to both of these things in early March with some exploration drilling. Most recently, we added ground to the south. This 36,000 hectare piece here was an addition from the government. That was an acquisition through application for the concession. There's some exciting historic auger work there as well. None of these have been drilled, by the way, historically. So they represent some pretty interesting things to get down to and start testing with a drill bit later this year. And then further to the south, we've acquired this 10,000 hectare concession that's 100% owned by founders, and represents a lot of opportunity for some I think pretty near-term exciting surface results. Overall, for 2026, we've got about 70,000 meters planned. We're splitting that about 50-50 between really working on expanding the more advanced targets, and then getting to those exploration targets and continuing to make more discoveries like those that we have to date, and expanding some of those previous discoveries as well. So zooming in a bit, so to the that 20,000 hectare concession piece, as I mentioned, most of the work's been focused up here at Upper Antino, but what we see in the historic auger work and in the geology as a whole is that we've got these large trends where we're continuing exploration on doing full-scale airborne geophysics survey that previously never been done. It's sort of resolution that we're working on now. I think that's going to help a lot with additional target refinement, and also build on that larger land package piece. Some of the stuff that's been really exciting about the Upper Antino piece in particular has been in acquiring that new ground. It kind of led us to, we hadn't been able to really cross the boundary before, actually holding those concessions. And so with those, we've now started moving our drills across that imaginary line that was the former concession boundary, and are pretty excited about the drilling that's going on now to expand Upper Antino into the northwest up here. But the timing of this presentation has actually worked out really well. We just put out some drill results this morning, and I have those here on the screen on this updated Upper Antino map. For those that aren't familiar, Upper Antino right now, mineralization defined by drilling is around 2.5 kilometers of strike, about 1.5 to 2 kilometers of quite well-defined mineralization. We start to take more aggressive steps as we go further north, so there's additional work to do to kind of refine that up there, but well defined in the central kind of 1,000 meters plus here. The numbers that we got from this most recent round of drilling did a great job of expanding mineralization further in the south and southeast down here, where we had numbers 10 meters of 5.9. We had 6 meters of 21.43 come out of some shallow work, and so just excellent demonstration of the grade continuity, particularly at the very shallow depths, and then also some expansion of that kind of down dip structure, where we're now seeing mineralization to depths of 450 to 500 meters vertical from surface. And with this new drilling, that across strike distance winds up being 450, 500 meters across strike, where we're building out a system of multiple parallel shears in this main Freudo system. The donut target over here on the right-hand side, this is something as well that we've had some excellent historic drilling success. This 19 meters of 14 grams comes from that area over here, and there's opportunity to continue doing some expansion work around there and adding additional ounces from that target. So still work to do, but very exciting and very encouraging results as this continues to grow. Current analyst consensus out there right now would be between 2 and 4 million ounces, typically with average grades of between 2 and 3 grams per ton is what's being cited reported by the analysts. We are pre-resource, but based on the drilling results and things that we publish, that's what people are coming out with. And so we see a lot of opportunity for that to continue to grow. The next piece that I want to touch on in terms of the more advanced targets is the lower Antino piece. And I don't think that it maybe gets fully appreciated because the grades are typically a little lower than the stuff from Upper Antino. But what they lack in the very high grade flashing numbers, they make up for in very impressive widths and great consistency. And so we've now drilled off about 1,000 plus meters of the actual mineralized body, and then extended that further with some trenching work that was done here to the south. We're now about 1.9, almost 2 kilometers of mineralization where we see this system continue. So there's a lot of opportunity for this to grow, and these are we have the preserved oxide mineralization here south of the creek, and so it's from surface mineralization, potentially very low strip, free dig mining scenario associated with that. Oxide horizon at the top, and then some great consistency in the grades as we go into the hard rock below that. So I think opportunity to build a lot of ounces, and we're 3.5 4 kilometers or less than 4 kilometers from Upper Antino. And so, really adding ounces to that total kind of global resource picture is really the goal of continuing work here at Lower Antino. So about 49 drill holes total in here. I think we've released up to 42, and there's going to be quite a bit more work done on Lower Antino over the course of the year as we look to continue expanding it. And then, finally, in terms of things that we've really touched on, it's been we've made numerous major discoveries, and that hit rate has been largely a product of having a good understanding of the structural framework and the geology itself in this area. Taking advantage where we can, if there's some small scale or artisanal historic mining, we definitely take advantage of the lower hanging fruit if we can take that first order piece of information and follow up with some geology work and then some drilling. We do that. There's been a number of really interesting discoveries that have been made, though, from very, very much pure grassroots greenfield prospecting. And these are pretty early targets out here, but a lot of very promising results from drilling. And I think the scale piece is something really to focus on. These are many kilometers apart, and so when you think of a typical gold camp in a lot of places in the world, many of these targets would be different mines by different companies even. And so we're in this very fortunate situation where we are demonstrating the strength of the mineralizing system in this entire area. And that's where we really get excited about this new land consolidation piece and being able to expand that exploration potential to the much larger land package, where we see equal potential or possibilities of basically. I think we're really still testing the how many Upper Antinos or potentially deposits even larger than Upper Antino are there on this new expanded property, and that's what's going to keep us quite busy this year. So coming back to this big picture image of the new concession, before I pause and allow for some questions. So the real plan for this year, we're taking half of our currently planned meters and focusing on primarily Upper Antino, Lower Antino right now as the most advanced targets, and looking to drive those forward from a still expansion standpoint. We haven't found the limits to either one, and with access to the northwest here, there's opportunity for Upper Antino to grow substantially as well. So really looking to see what the definitions or the outlines of those are. But as with this most recent press release, we're doing a bit of looking at drilling some of the infill stuff as well to build out towards just demonstrating that continuity of high-grade mineralization, or in the case of Lower Antino, the more bulk tonnage mineralization that we see there. So really see a lot of potential for those to grow and add a lot of ounces over the course of 2026. The big catalysts from a news flow standpoint are going to be drilling. Drilling's going to be focused on those, or the results we put out. We focus on the Upper and Lower Antino stuff, alongside the other half of the drill meters that will come from, in March, we'll have drills on these targets here in the north. We also have plans to come back to a number of the other targets here on the original Antino concession, and kind of everything fits within a ranking system internally that we really want to, as efficiently as we can, get around and test as many more things as we can, but also look to build on what we've already come to understand with some of these earlier targets to the east on the original Antino concession. So I'd say look out for lots of drill results overall. We plan to keep a pace of about one or more drill results press release per month over the course of 2026. And then lots of, I think, other news items sprinkled in and amongst those. And I'll pause there, and I'll take the opportunity to answer a few questions. So the first question I have here is the 10-meter intercept of 5.9 grams per ton gold at 394 meters depth in Froyo 175 shows continuity at depth. How deep do you think the system could extend? So the reality here is we sit in a second or third order structure off of the central Guyana shear zone. And this is a multi-kilometer wide shear that's cutting through the entirety of the Guyana Shield. And so being in a structure that's just off of that, you expect these things, and it's very geologically reasonable that they'd be very, very deep rooted. And that's so far been the case for the other deposits in the broader region. These things typically have very, very deep legs. So the likes of G Mining's Oko West or G2's Oko, Omai, all of these things are very deep-rooted systems. We're now down well below 500 meters of intercepting the shear at Upper Antino, and we expect that it would continue considerably deeper than that. The next question is around the Okasi exploitation concession, which is, don't have it labeled on here, but that's this concession here at the furthest south. So that it's 100% owned and mentions having near-term production potential. Basically, what's the upside case? What's the upside case for generating early cash flow from Okasi to help self-fund the larger Antino exploration and maybe de-risk a future build? Yeah, I think that there's excellent opportunity there. So we're advancing our discussions with the broader local communities and also evaluating what our options are. And I'll say that we have a lot of very strong support on that front from those communities, but also the mining side. There is a lot of opportunity, whether it's following up on historic alluvial mining or placer type mining, similar to the gold that you see in the photo here from this pan. This was just about 3 weeks ago. There is a lot of opportunity to look at some smaller scale mining that helps fund the larger picture exploration. And with gold prices as they are, I think that becomes a more and more interesting opportunity to evaluate and to look into. Next question is, with full geophysics auger LiDAR over the 100,000 hectare concession, how quickly could that realistically translate into a second and third wave of major discoveries? So yeah, I think we're right now, we're about 75% complete on the geophysical survey, the airborne survey over this kind of northern part of the concession, or northern half of the concession. We already see a lot of very interesting things in terms of targets and places to go and investigate with boots on the ground. Just out of that work, the auger survey work, we've ramped up that considerably, and we'll be very aggressively looking at getting that auger work done, and we'll cover a good portion actually of this northern part of the concession in the first half of this year. And we're being strategic about where we put those grids initially, but I think there's opportunity for within H1 to start seeing some pretty exciting targets being generated out of that and getting drills onto some of them. We've already had success from both, I think, the auger work and from the geophysics in identifying some targets that are kind of immediately west of Upper Antino, and we've already mobilized, just as the last few days, mobilized drills to go and test those. So that second and third wave of big discoveries is something that we think are going to start happening very quickly, and then we'll continue to do so. So next question is, Suriname is described as a pro-mining jurisdiction with major operations by Newmont and Zijin. From your perspective on the ground, what are the key permitting, ESG, and community relation risks that could impact timeline at Antino, and how are you managing them? So yeah, I think kind of touched on one of them just there in that last comment around the community relations and ESG front. We've been very proactive from very early days. I mean, we're an exploration company, but we've always been very much engaged with the communities that would be considered stakeholders to the larger area, and that's at both the local community level, but also at the government level. We do a lot of in-country kind of very proactive from an education standpoint, and from a local kind of Suriname first hiring policy and local content policy around making sure that we're using things that are produced in or from Suriname as much as possible. So we do take that very seriously. And from a permitting standpoint, I mean, there's a certain level of buy-in that's I think, globally expected and understood that should exist with the local communities. And so, yeah, we think we're on a very good spot as far as those relationships go. And I think we can really build something that's mutually advantageous to everyone there. Next question was, if everything goes right over the next 24 to 36 months, what's your own blue sky version for Antino and the broader Suriname district in terms of number of deposits, production profile, and where Founders fits into the global mid-tier major landscape? So the next 24 to 36 months is a really exciting time for us. I mean, the scale of land package, this opportunity to start targeting or identifying and drill targeting, growing lists of potentially upper Antino size or even larger size deposits. I really do think that there's the potential for defining a 10 million plus ounce gold resource on the broader Antino property as a whole in that sort of timeline. And the geology is certainly that perspective. Being at that scale, I mean, we have already partners in B2 and Goldfields. I think there's certainly lots of interest there. Defining that puts us in a position to really decide whether we're moving forward with a mining scenario ourselves, or potentially partnering with one of those companies or another company down the road to develop it or potentially move through an M&A process. I think that will evolve over time, but we're focused on the exploration piece primarily at the moment, and that's really targeting the exploration and defining those ounces and the real clear potential for those ounces. And we should be making a very good run at that in 2026. Next question is, working capital is 55 million with the company-owned rigs and the cost there. How sustainable is that cost structure as you scale up, and what are the key inflation or logistics pressures in Suriname that could push those costs higher? I think it's a very good question. In terms of the, I think I put two questions together here. They're moving for me. So address the working capital one. So working capital is 55 million against an aggressive multi-target program. How far does that runway take you in terms of meters drilled and key catalysts? And under what conditions would you contemplate another financing? So right now, our current kind of planned or budgeted burn is right around 3 million Canadian per month. So that gives us that kind of 18-month runway or so at present, and that's with that 70,000 potentially plus meter drill program. We're very efficient on the drilling front, and I think even with the further afield exploration targets, we're going to be able to maintain that pace and that burn rate. So it gives us a lot of runway and takes us through, I think, the ability to test a lot of targets and potentially find the kind of the next upper Antino or the next bigger than upper Antino deposit on the property. So really those major drilling catalysts are the things that we're driving for, but it also is sufficient dollars or drill capacity to move upper Antino and lower Antino very much forward in terms of defining ounces and resources there long term. The next question is, how much can existing airstrip, river access, and regional equipment reduce timing and CapEx of any future mine build if the geology delivers? So I think the geology is already delivered, but we're only going to keep making it bigger. But the existing airstrip, we have the largest airstrip in the interior Suriname at our main camp. It's owned and controlled by Founders at this point, and it's been a huge success or help in the logistics of getting the exploration piece moving. But it's obviously going to support the development of a larger scale mining operation in the future. So it really does help a lot, and having river access means you can get heavy equipment and everything there as well. I've come up on time here, so I'll stop questions there, but I really appreciate everyone's time, and it's really great to be able to present as part of this OTC event. Thanks, everyone.